Welcome to the Coop Tank. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, coming to you from SuiteRecording in beautiful Mount Laurel, New Jersey. You know, people, if you have a podcast, a video cast, an audiobook, hell, even if you need a studio built, SuiteRecording is a place for you. Joe Gangemi not only does a great job, but he's a great guy and he's honest. So reach out to them. Check out their website, SuiteRecording, SUITE recording.com, or email them at hello@suiterecording.com. Anyway, we're back with the Roundtable. I got some of my friends on, some movers and shakers in the business world in South Jersey and Philly area. And we have from Collingswood and Haddon Heights Living and Collingswood Listens podcast, we have Grace Hopper. How you doing, Grace?
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And we have from Payday Employer Solutions, a man who records his podcast right in the studio, Millennial Outliers. We have Justin Deal. How you doing, Justin?
Doing amazing, Steve. Thanks for having me this morning.
And finally, a man who doesn't have a podcast, but he's not only a fractional CEO, but he is the man and the myth and the legend behind the alternative board of Southern New Jersey. It's Joe Ohlweiler. How you doing, Joe?
Great, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to start off. I want to ask all of you, I'm going to go around the room. We're going to say what we do and what makes us different and, why we love what we do, basically. And I'll start with you, Grace.
Sure. So I own Collingswood Living and Heights Living magazines. This is a picture of Collingswood. It's a direct mailer that goes to the community, sharing content really about the residents that live there, keeping them abreast about their neighbor and anything that's trending in town. But part of my business is twofold, because in addition to putting together meaningful content for the Camden County neighborhoods, I also help businesses maintain visibility with their target markets with both a print and digital reach. And so Collingswood Living was kind of the starting point for that. And then we've added a lot of other bells and whistles with the digital world and so on. But that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell.
Great. Okay. And how about you, Justin?
So I'm a VP of Payday Employer Solutions. So we start by alleviating the payroll headache for most business owners, then branch out depending on what their needs are, from HR to pensions to benefits, time and attendance, onboarding, things of that nature. And the big differentiator is just actually picking up the phone. It's a shame that it's that simple, but a lot of these other companies in that industry, it's really about call centers and pushing people to use the technology. We're still a little old school. We still like to talk to people and help them solve problems.
And how about you, Joe?
Yeah, I own the company called the Alternative Board. I work with business owners and CEOs. I help them do their strategic planning, help them build out a plan for their business. I do one-on-one coaching, and then I bring them together on boards. I've got 3 boards of 8 to 10 business owners, and we meet once a month. Everybody talks about a topic, something that's going on in their business in those meetings, and gets feedback from everyone else around the table. So it's kind of a peer board arrangement. It's a sounding board for business owners. And then I'm a fractional CFO, not CEO, but CFO. So I help businesses with their budgeting, forecasting, everything that a CFO would do full-time for a business. I do that part-time for them. And most business owners don't really focus as much on the financials as they should. So I help them focus on them.
Okay, cool. I want to start off with, okay, I'm newlywed. 4 years I'll be married. I don't have children. I know all of you have children, okay? And I asked you before, various ages from 2 to 22. So we're really covering the whole spectrum. I want to ask you, when you've started your business or when you go to work, for me, I have to worry about myself and my wife. How hard is it? Does it put pressure on you when going to work, you want to give your kids good things, so you have to succeed? I mean, I take that from all you. You don't sit there and go, I want my kid to wear, hand-me-downs. There's nothing wrong with hand-me-downs, but you don't want to do that. But how do you deal with that pressure? And do you put extra pressure on yourself because you have kids? And we'll start with you, Grace, because you have 2, 5 and 11, very different ages, different points in their life. How do you feel pressure that you have to do well so you can give them a life you want to give them?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely some of that. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, my family and my kids are, my why, and the reason that I get up and I hustle as hard as I do, because the reason that I do everything I do is because I love my kids and my husband more than anything in the world. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Just you're smacking the table. So
Oh,
don't smack the
I
table.
apologize. Yeah, so I think that it, helps me to keep a very strong work ethic because in addition to feeling the pressure, I'm a role model to two girls, and I want to show them. I brought them to the office today that mommy works really hard and that you can be a woman and you can be strong and you can be in the world in business, and to just kind of do less talking and more showing. So that's of great value to me, and yeah, it's super meaningful, and it's the reason I do what I do each day.
Hey, how about you, Joe? Because your kid's a little older, and I know you recently started Tab. You haven't been there that long.
Right.
Was it easier for you to start when your kids were older, even though you probably sent them to college? But what was it? What is it for like you having your kids have grown up when you had your job where you used to be, and now where you are now? Does that put added pressure on you to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not looking at the pressure side of it. I think I'm in a different spot because they're older when I did start this business. But what was happening is I was commuting to Manhattan. I was working for NBC, and I was missing out on a ton of things because I was, working most of the time. And that was one reason why I did leave and go into doing what I'm doing now, to actually be able to be around more and more involved in their things. So it was more about the time spending with them. It wasn't about the pressure of being able to support them. But it's certainly something that, it's always in the back of your mind. You want to do well for your family. And I just put one through college. She just graduated this year, but she wants to go to med school. So that's, who knows where that's going. And then the others going into her sophomore year at St. Joe's. So yeah, I think to Grace's point, that's why you do what you do for your family. You want to succeed and provide. So it's always there in the back of my mind, but it's not, forefront all the time.
Well, how about you, Justin? You have as many kids as those two combined. So yeah, you have four. I mean, you have two, you have twins, which I always think, well, when you have twins, when you have a job and you're thinking you have one kid, what happens when you have twins? Do you go like, shit, okay, now I got to work a little harder because there's two instead of one? Or tell me about it. How is it with your kids? Because they're very young and you're a young guy. You're like 30, what, 32, 33?
I appreciate that. 36, but I'll take that all day. Yeah, it was, so just speaking on the twins, so we have none that run in our family, my wife or myself. So to say it was a surprise is an understatement. My wife actually popped into my office to show me the ultrasound when that was kind of being found. And being a financial guy, as you can imagine, I kind of already knew what I was doing for the second kid. But out of nowhere, within a minute, it was like, wow, I'm going from not 1 to 2, but to 3. And, zone defense automatically as parents. So things were crazy there, but the fortunate part was that we were 5 years into business by the time I had my first child. So a lot of those 80 and 100-hour weeks were behind me at that point, and I could be more present through a lot of it. But to the initial question, pressure is honestly, it's a privilege, right? Like I love the fact that it rests on my shoulders to provide for my family, to be that leader, to be the person who steps up and brings in the bacon, so to speak. But like everybody else said, they are the why. Having 4 kids, 2 of mine are on the autism spectrum as well. So, brings some different challenges in life, and we have therapists and things that come through the house. So schedules, as chaotic or maybe a little bit more than most, but it's a nonstop reminder, just to be grateful for the things that we have every day, and what I get to do and get out of my house and develop with other businesses. But like I said, it's a privilege to have that pressure and to be able to provide and do things every day.
Will you adopt me? God, can I stay with you for a while? Well, I'm going to follow up that question with this, because when I lived in LA, I wasn't married, and then my wife ended up moving out with me. But I could go out and network and do what I want and drink and have fun, and I had no one to answer to, not to answer to, but with you, what's it like because you all go out, you all network, you're all busy, Grace, you with the Rotary, Joe, you're always out and about, Justin, you have Harvest and your podcast and all this. How do you deal with when your kids say, mom or dad, I don't want you to go. I want you to stay home. how hard is it to leave? I mean, they don't understand at a young age that you're going out to make money so they can get stuff and for you to be happy. But for you, Joe, how was it when your kids were young, when you had to go to Manhattan every day? Was it hard to sit there when they're leaving and they're like, Dad, I want you to do this? I mean, how hard is that as a parent when you know also you're a business person too, so you have to really juggle it? How hard is that?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's certainly hard. You don't, want to leave. You'd love to be able to stay and be around them as much as you can. I think, you eventually you talk to them, you explain to them what you're doing, and they start to get it. That, hey, Dad goes to work each day. That's what he does. And, I see him in the morning, I see him at night, I see him on the weekends. And, I think over time they get to it. It's been a long time since they're 18 or 19 and 22 now. So Grace and Justin could probably talk even more to it because they're in it. But I think you just be real with them. You tell them what's going on, and they get it and they get used to it.
Grace, what's your thought, Grace?
Well, I think it's twofold as a business owner, because in a sense, yeah, I miss things, but I'm also able to call myself on Thursday and say, hey, can I take the kids to the beach for 4 days? And I say yes to myself and we go. So while there's moments that maybe I'm missing, ultimately I took this leap into working for myself because it gave me the flexibility, so that, like some of us on this call have already said, there's really nothing that I want to do that I miss at this point in my life. That's kind of behind me, working for other people. So that's been a major advantage to working for myself. And then in addition to that, I mean, I have a spouse at home on deck who works from home, but I'm just super grateful to be in a spot where I can go out and really flourish and grow my business. And I don't have to ever think about if my kids are thriving in good hands. My husband is absolutely incredible, and I owe everything to him.
All right. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, similar to Grace, my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, so she's there with the kids constantly. We have them in a lot of activities, so she gets her breaks as well. But I constantly have those conversations with my kids. Fortunately, we do travel a lot, so I always push that work hard, play hard mentality. But I really let them know, like, hey, Daddy's doing this Monday through Friday to provide that undivided attention for the weekends, and that's only going to be for so long. I have a 7-year plan personally, and I share that with them that, eventually it's going to be 20 or 30 hours a week business, and the rest of it will be for them. And what I would say is probably some of the most important years of their life.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about networking now, because we all network. I know we're always out there, and I'm sort of in a networking rut right now. I'm a little bit bored of it. I'll be honest with you. I think anytime when you do a lot of networking, it's like anything. You get bored and you see the same people and you're like, you know what? I'd rather sit at home and watch, The Bear or whatever TV show just came out, which The Bear came out last night. And it was really good. The music's great. But how do you deal with when you're in a networking rut? How do you pull yourself out of it? Because it's so important these days. I know, Justin, you said, you're on the phone, but cold calling, you're also a good networker, and your mom's been in business for a long time. People know you. So you have that advantage because you have networked the whole time. But what do you do when you get in a rut? Do you ever get in a rut, or are you going to sit there and say, oh, I love networking all the time? Because when people say that, I think they're full of shit. I'm just going to say, it's like anything. I love watching the Phillies, but I can't watch them every day. But for you, Justin, what do you do when you get in a rut for networking?
Yeah, so when I get into those ruts, it's really, I try to focus back on what value am I bringing to the room, right? Because it kind of reignites you when you realize you make a difference in somebody else's life or somebody else's business. You make that connection, that recommendation, whatever it is. But, I'm fortunate, I host a lot of my own events as well. So I kind of get to cherry pick who I want in the room, how I want to coordinate that. So, I would agree some of the rooms get a little stale because it's definitely the same faces. And, I think to shake that up, I try to force myself to go find the people I haven't met in that room to, again, just figure out how I can, continue to bring the value into that room. Because I don't know about everybody else, but that's really what keeps me kind of going. Is it's like a challenge of who do you need to know? Are they in my network? And if not, it gives me something else to kind of go obsess over and find whatever this niche market is.
What's amazing about all three of you is anybody can be a client almost for you, except, well, Joe, Joe, you go for smaller companies pretty much, but what is it like when you're going in? And it's true, you can go to an event and you can get a client right there because they go, oh my God, we don't have a board, we need it. For you, Joe, do you ever get a little, I don't feel like going to this event? And if you do, how do you break out of it? Or how do you actually end up going to the event and looking enthusiastic? Because you never want to look like, a lump in the corner.
No, I see, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I'm really horrible. If I'm not feeling it, you're going to see that I don't feel it. And I've actually been at a networking event and left because I just didn't feel it. Like I was there for a half hour and I said, I just don't feel it. And I left. It only happened once. So what I've been doing is kind of reducing the number of events I'm going to and really trying to pick the ones, that seem to make sense for me to go to, but also not going to as many, because it really does, you can get in a rut. And to prevent that, I'm slowing down how many I go to. I was just at an event 2 nights ago. It's fantastic. The room was great. A lot of good people. I just felt the energy and it was awesome. Made some real good new connections. I just threw a happy hour last night with all my members. So we just had a great time just connecting all of them and them networking. So yeah, I can't fake it. So I leave if I'm not feeling it, and I just reduce the number I go to.
That's really good because a lot of people do fake it. A lot of people just go and you're like, and they're full of shit. A lot of them, they're telling you stuff. They're always telling you about their referral partners. Well, damn well they don't have any referral partners who give them referrals. And I try to tell them, if you're just yourself and you're sincere, you will get referrals because people will like you. Now with you, Grace, how are you in networking? Because you network, but not as much as these guys are like hardcore. These guys are like out there, but you network. What is it like for you?
Well, look, I'm still trying to master my craft with that. I think Joe made some really good points about quality over quantity. It's actually really funny because I was with Justin Deal in his office last week and I was like, Justin, what do I do? What's the quality over quantity? Like I'm always trying to keep an ear to the streets of, how am I actually out there in a way where I'm making relationships that are meaningful, that are going to have longevity versus just going and having a bunch of surface level chats at the chamber. Like that's not adding a lot of value for me and really what I do in my business. It's really about making connections that are meaningful. The Rotary is something that I got involved in and I love it. I mean, I haven't written a ton of business from it, but it was something that just totally takes the pressure off because you're there to do good in the community. But through that vehicle, I've made so many incredible connections in town. And I think I've really been able to show up in a way that people understand that I'm not just here to extract money. I'm here to show up and be a part of the conversation and give back. And again, going back to the role modeling for my kids, it's been really special for me to get to show them, like mom's going to get up and go clean, the park today on Saturday. Mom's, going to partner with Larry with Book Smiles, and we're going to help bring books to, impoverished neighborhoods of South Jersey, like really putting that into play. And so that's been a way that I've kind of leveraged this networking angle, is through this kind of meaningful work. And then finding people in the community that I respect. Like Steve, when I met you, I sat next to you at a chamber and I knew that you had some great nuggets to offer. I mean, just kind of your motto is be yourself. And so I'm learning through some of the people that I respect, admire in business, and trying to just take a page out of their book and be real. And I think that people respond to it. So, but again, I'm still learning, obviously.
Well, how important is community to you, Grace? I mean, and what made you decide that community is important? Because a lot of people don't get involved with community. I don't do enough. My wife does a lot of stuff. She's a sexual assault victim. She speaks at colleges. She speaks at different things. She's been on TV. Me, I mean, I'll at Christmas time, I'm the typical hypocrite. I'll get like $20 worth of dollar good stuff and give it to the food shelter, but I don't do enough. And I know that, and I want to change that. But why is community important to you? And what made you want to get involved with it, Grace?
Oh, well, years ago, I don't think I would have said it was important to me, right? But as I've gotten older, I mean, number one, my business is all about community. I joke like I'm the mayor of Collingswood. I have to show up in a way that people see that I care about the town. This is, this town is my livelihood. It's my blood, sweat, and tears. So there's that aspect of it. But it's also, as I've gotten older, it doesn't feel good to just take. Like, I actually have come to a place where I was sitting in my bed with my husband a year ago, and I'm like, I want to do something that is meaningful, that's adding value, where I feel good about, just taking for you. It doesn't bring a ton of joy and fulfillment for me to just, so communities become bigger in the sense that finding out from doing the wrong things, by not giving back, by not immersing myself, I'm the best version of myself when I'm showing up and I'm caring about the community. And Collingswood's become my home away from home. I spend more time here than I do, because I live in Philadelphia, where there's really no sense of community. So I've really found that in Collingswood and Heights and Camden County. And it's been really special.
Okay, how about you, Justin? Because I know you're involved in Harvest, and I'll tell you this: I was at that dunk tank, and you were really good with your kids. A lot of times, there's a lot of kids there, and I'm just in the dunk tank. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many kids here. I'm not used to this. But that's a compliment. You're a really good father. You're really patient with your kids. And I know through Harvest and stuff like that, you do get involved in the community. But what is it, because you have some kids, maybe because one year has special needs? Is that why it really got you back into giving to the community, so you can help people also maybe understand autism? Or what got you into giving back so much?
Honestly, it was I've just always grown up with my family. My mother specifically has always been like that community driven, and always showed us like what we were fortunate to have and what others kind of lack. So I coached football when my first daughter was born in town. It was something, I was a four-sport athlete. I am now raising my family in the same town I grew up in. So I wanted to give back in that way. I was coaching, and I was a D1 player, so I figured the kids would relate to me. I was still young. And my wife would be like, you have no kids on the field. Like, what are you doing? And I just said, I'm like, that's what this is all about. And then once we had kids, that old saying that it takes the village, I started to realize how important that was to have all these dots connected. And, as you had alluded to, having children on the autism spectrum, especially your first, there is no book on parenting. You're not really sure what's happening. Your head's spinning. And we started to jump into some of these groups. And we very quickly realized, with Gianna being high functioning, that we were actually kind of hurting the other parents whose kids were nonverbal and things of that nature. So we're like, this probably isn't our support route. But, I always want to help people up. So being a big member of the community, whether it be to your point with Harvest, trying to help other people, further develop themselves, or, just a lot of things I try to do with mentoring. I go back into our high school, I help with the DECA program. I'm very big on the next generation, because I've always vowed I didn't want to be that old guy who just constantly complained about the next generation. I'd rather put my hand out and help pull them up and help mold them to a better generation than just sit there and criticize.
It's funny. I'm the get off my lawn guy, but I like helping younger people, though, and that's the truth. I will help young people because I think it's very important. How about you, Joe? What do you do? What's your role in community, and what made you get involved?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I was in corporate, I did get involved. We always had days of giving, and we'd go out into the community and give back and volunteer. And then when I started my business, I got so immersed in building the business, and I was just focused on building the business. And I've been helpful, working with small business owners and medium-sized business owners, really helping them. And that's been, something that I felt like I was giving back in that way, but realized that, that's one piece of it. And then it's the community's the next thing. And so that's the next thing I'm focused on, is getting all of my business owners together in some way that we can all give back to the community. So it's funny, I was just talking to a couple different organizations on where we can go, and whether we're serving food or preparing meals. I was just talking to Ronald McDonald House. Maybe that's an area that we can do that. There's a couple kitchens in Camden as well. So that's one of the goals that I have for this year, is to organize an event with all the business owners to do that.
Justin, you just mentioned mentoring, and I think, at any age, you can mentor people, but you can also be mentored. I will sit there, I talk to young people all the time, because I go, what are you guys doing to, make this happen, or this, or, Grace, you had mentioned TikTok, and I said, I do a stupid character, but I see people doing TikTok and stuff like that. How important is it to not only mentor, but also be mentored? And I'll start with you, Joe, because you work with a lot of business owners. So I'm sure, even though you're helping them, I'm sure they can come back and help you in some way.
Yeah, I think I'm always learning. That's what I love about what I'm doing. So in my background, I did strategic planning and I was a CFO at NBC. So I had that corporate experience, but I also ran a business for 7 years back in the early 2000s. So I had that entrepreneurial side too. So I bring that to them. But so I work with over 30 businesses and they're all different kinds of businesses, all different people. And I learn something new every day. And I share it with other people too, whether it's not, details of exactly something in a business, but it's the concepts, it's the ideas. I think I'm constantly introducing people to, if I learn that there's a business that can help another business, I'll connect them. So I'm mentoring them, I'm learning from them, but I also use a business coach myself. Because I know I don't know everything. I need somebody else to be a sounding board for me too. So I think no matter where you are in life and in your career, you could always benefit from having a mentor or a coach.
How about you, Grace?
So that's a huge part of my business. I have a coach that I talk to multiple times a day. A lot of it's for me is just being able to mentally regurgitate things that happen out in the world so I can kind of continue to keep my head right. And then, being that I came into this community cold as a stranger in the winter of the pandemic, a lot of people treated me a lot of different ways. Some were nice and some were just downright assholes. And you don't really forget, the way that people treat you. And I'll never forget it. And there's people who I look at now, I see them, I'm like, I'll never forget how big of a dick you were when I called. Like, it just stays with you forever. And so I vowed to never be that person. And that when people come and they're new to this community, I always want to be a helping hand, because you just never know how down the road that's going to hit you back. And I think a lot of business owners, maybe not a lot, but they're out there. They're very short-sighted of that. And so when we talk mentorship, I'm always trying to remember the way that I remember certain people treated me very kindly and they would have taken their shirt off their backs. Like, I want to be known as that type of person in the community where I'm a helper, I'm a connector, and I work really diligently to be intentional about that.
How about you, Justin? Because you had mentioned the mentor. So I want to, you mentor people, but do people mentor you?
Oh, absolutely. So ironically, for about the first 10 years of my business, I really wasn't using any coaching. And then when I started with my first coach, he said, when did you feel like you were most successful? And I said, that's easy. It was always, when I was in sports, when I was playing, football or basketball, whatever it was. And so don't you find that ironic that you had a coach leading you and shaping you the whole time, but then you thought you could get into business and just out? And it was kind of that light bulb moment. I realized how important curiosity is and that constant seek for knowledge. So like now I have a personal trainer, I have a finance coach, I have a faith coach, I have somebody that I kind of talk to about overall family, like arcing issues. And I really do. I try to seek out people that are living the life or doing the thing, walking the walk that I'm trying to get to. And honestly, with the power of social media, you can, in the worst case, you shoot your shot and they tell you to kick rocks. But a lot of times people they'll kind of do their research. They look at who you are, gauge your character. And thankfully for me, I think a lot of times people see a little piece of themselves in me. And that's where the connection starts. And then thankfully they take that next step with me and start to mentor me. But it's honestly one of the most important things in life. There's nothing worse than like a know-it-all. I've realized how much I don't even know that I don't know. And since I've opened myself up to that concept, life has gotten so much better.
I never understand. You're right about the know-it-all. Like, don't they know that they don't know it all? Like, you ever you can learn every day. I mean, like me, I go to YouTube. I couldn't cut a mango. I screwed up the mango. I went to YouTube. I said, how to cut a mango. Now I know how to cut a mango. So I learned something that day, and it may be something so trivial, but I learned it. Now, as I said earlier, we network. What do you hate about networking? Like, I hate clicks. Okay. Like Justin, I always said, you're in Harvest. Harvest is a group. Okay. If I go to an event, if I see you, if I see Devin, if I see Turpin, or if I see Linda, you're not all going to huddle in a corner, and not talk to me. You know, you're not, but there's things I hate like that. But what do you hate? Well, not hate's a strong word. What do you dislike? We'll start with you, Joe. What do you dislike about networking? Because as you said, you wear it on your sleeve, but to me, you always come across as a very easygoing guy. And of course, both you and Justin have the advantage because you're both tall. So when you walk in the room, people gravitate towards you. Me, I'm bald. They run away from me. That's why I wear hats. But what do you not like about networking? Like, what's your pet peeve, Joe?
I mean, I don't like the clicky, people that just go into their clicks. I just don't like people that aren't real either. Like when somebody comes up to me and is talking to me and then I'm talking, if they're not even listening to me, it's almost like they're looking past me to the next like business card they're going to get. So I don't like people that aren't real. I don't feel like I encounter that too often. I mean, most of the time I enjoy the networking events I'm at. I guess I can talk to anybody. I'm interested in meeting new people. But I guess if somebody's not real, that would really bother me. And I would see it right away.
How about you, Justin?
I think the forced intro with lack of thought. So like you walk in the room, it's that double-edged sword, right? Because it's a huge compliment because somebody's like, hey, I just want to meet somebody who's well networked. And they're like, oh, there's Justin, you should meet him. But when they haven't put any thought into like, what's the reciprocal value going to be? You kind of just put me in this corner where it's like, oh, Justin's going to be able to shotgun blast all these intros. He's going to bring all this value, which is the end goal. But like, hey, how will we get to know each other? And you tell me why we should even be speaking right now. Sometimes those get a little awkward and you're in the conversation and you're like, okay, you're kind of fishing for clues. What are we doing here? How can I help you? Why was this a good thought? Those ones are tough, but to your point, even more so, it's definitely, I don't like when people stand in circles in general. I don't know if you've ever noticed when I'm networking, I like constantly move. It might be like an ADD side, but I hate to have my back to people. And there's nothing worse than walking up and there's like 4 people with their back to you, 2 people kind of looking at you, the one, and you're like, how do I break through this Berlin Wall and get in there without seeming like, the asshole was jumping in the middle of the room to be like, hey, nice to meet everybody.
That's a pet peeve of mine. When you go up to a group of people and you know someone and they don't introduce everyone. I was always brought up, introduce everyone. You come up, and I'm an over introducer. I'd be at bars drunk in LA and I'd be, hey, hey, Jim, hey, yeah, we met him like 5 times, Steve, put the bottle down. But it's just one of those things, I do that. For you, Grace, what is it that is your pet peeve or you just don't like?
Well, I'm definitely still working my way through navigating and the learning curve of being a good networker. I'm still figuring out kind of how to be a pro like these guys. But I would just say that in general, networking comes with a certain sense of discomfort. You're kind of navigating a space and a lot of people that you're meeting for the first time, and a lot of it is fluff and a lot of it is fake. And in order to kind of find some of the diamonds that fall out, you have to be able to kind of force yourself through that. And I've walked away from some of those networking events and met some really fantastic, I met Steve at a networking event, so.
I want to ask you, okay, as we talk about people in networking, we all get partners in business. We choose who we want to work with, who we want to give referrals to. For me, some characteristics I look for in people is honesty and integrity. Those 2 things are very important to me. And we talked about this last week, and someone's like, no, you don't know right off the bat. But they're for me important. So if someone has integrity, you just know they're good people. And if they're honest, they're not going to bullshit you. What are some characteristics, Justin, you look in people, Justin? Seriously, what are some characteristics like integrity and honesty are important to me? What are some characteristics that are important for you that you will sit there and go, I trust this person to refer work to them and I'm not going to get screwed over?
I mean, honestly, for me, a lot of times it's as simple as like, just don't be an asshole, right? If we can have a conversation, we can get past a few moments and we can exchange. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character overall with people, and I can typically tell by how our conversation starts, what's happening in the middle, and how it ends. So when people just talk business the entire time, that's also kind of a pet peeve of mine. There's many layers to who I am, especially if you follow my social media. I put almost all of it out there. I'm constantly on a microscope. But, ask about the family. Let's see how else we can connect. I can't tell you how many times I helped somebody because they found out about my health journey or my faith or my child being on the spectrum, or and we connect on a whole different level, and we become, pretty friendly through that. And then the business flows. But once we start to be partnering, the biggest thing for me, because our company's core value really is to kind of, to over exceed the expectation of what customer service is. So if your business doesn't do that, I've had partners in the past that were great people, but their internal staff just couldn't pick up the phone to the same level, provide that same level of service and certainty that, a lot of our team does. And that's a deal breaker for me, because if you're just a technology based thing where the service is kind of the back part of it, it's just not going to work out, because our people trust us so much, and we're very high with most of our partners on their closing rate for referrals, and it's because they trust us. So you can't misplace that trust and lose it, because obviously that's going to poorly affect me at the end of the day.
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely need to get to know somebody before I'd refer them to somebody else for business. So I have to meet them. Usually I'll connect with somebody at a networking event and then have coffee with them, and then really have an opportunity to get to know them better, or have lunch, just some time where you can truly connect and learn more about them. Like Justin said, about their personal side, about their family, about their values. Because it for me especially, people trust me, and if I'm introducing them and giving my word about somebody in business, and then they go and do something bad and hurt their business, it affects me too. And that's the last thing I want to do. So for me, I like to meet people at networking event. I feel like it's a little bit superficial at those events until you get that next meeting where you can really meet who they are. And if I make that initial connection with somebody, then I'll have that second meeting. If I don't, then we just work.
What are some characteristics?
I mean, to me, it's the way nonverbals are big to me. Are they looking in my eyes? Are they listening to me? Are we having a conversation, or does it seem like they're just trying to get, a connection and then run off to the next one and collect as many business cards as they can? Like when I go to a networking event, if I only meet 2 or 3 people, but they're real good, solid discussions and connections, that's more important than coming out with 10 business cards.
How about you, Grace?
I think some of that is just having the ability to read the room and kind of just going off of your gut instinct with the vibe of, when you feel someone has integrity, why is that? A lot of times I know immediately if I connect on that organic level, or if I don't, when it comes to, South Jersey and home businesses, I have a lot of businesses that market with me. And when it comes to recommendations and referrals, reputations are built around town, and South Jersey is a fishbowl. So for better or for worse, reputation it's so important, because I learned very quickly the people who I'm like, I don't know that I should refer this person because I'm that tuned in and connected in town. So, and if it's not great feedback, like I hear about it, and it's unfortunate, because then I can't just go about, I have to be cautious about, just like all of us do, who we're going to recommend.
I have one final question. You've all been in business for a while, different avenues, you work different jobs. I think, Justin, you've been pretty much, you've pretty much been in the company the whole time, but that's your birthright. That's what you do. That's what you were brought up with, and it's great. But what would you, and I'll start with you, Joe, because you had the corporate job and now you're on your own. Someone coming out of college, okay, they're coming out of college, they're bushy-tailed and bright-eyed, and I don't know what kind of shit they're going to go through eventually. What's some advice you would give to them to sit there and just to get started and to get established and just to find a career path? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I tell my kids too, find what you're passionate about. I mean, I really truly believe that. It sounds cliche, but find something that you're really interested in and love doing, because if it's a job that you love, then it doesn't feel like a job. So first, find what it is that really interests you and that you're passionate about. And I spoke to college students at Rutgers, a finance class, and I said, you need to find a mentor. When you get into a business, find somebody that's been in that business for a longer time, and ask if they can help mentor you, they're going to start pointing out just within that business the things you should do and things you should avoid, how they got to where they got. You can really learn from them what their path was, and if it's a path that you want to follow. So I think it's finding something you're passionate about and then finding a mentor.
What if you find out what you're passionate about, you're not going to make money? Like, what if you're passionate about being a juggler? I mean, what would you say to your kids? I mean, would you sit there as a parent? Would you try to, because Scott Galloway, I don't know if
Well,
you're
that sounds like
familiar
a hobby.
Okay.
not,
No,
not
okay,
a
but so
profession.
you okay, but no, okay, so you would understand, you would tell your kids, I know you're passionate about juggling, but there's no money in it, and you're not going to make a career.
Oh, I would.
All right. Okay, that's good
Yeah.
though. Okay, so how about you, Grace? What would you tell someone?
I think take massive action, do everything that you can to get your feet wet, follow your passion, but don't be afraid to move on to the next thing. I fell into what I do now by doing everything I hated first. So by trying it and being like, I'm not made for, I used to work for University of Michigan Institute for Social Research. Research and I are probably not a fit, but I learned that through doing those things and then realizing, wow, people actually make a big job out of what I'm great at, which is building relationships. And so by doing all of those jobs that weren't a fit, I figured out kind of what a fit was for me. And the massive action piece, like you can't sit at home afraid to move the needle and do the next thing. You have to keep it moving and kind of turn the noise down because there's a lot of noise.
All right, how about you, Justin?
So I'm going to go a little against Joe there. I would agree passion's definitely important to it, but I'm a firm believer of double down on what you're good at. So really, whatever skills that you have that you're good at, really make those even finer and better skills. And something so simple that most people overlook is start to develop daily habits, right? This is something that I didn't do until a few years ago, but like health, super important. When you're healthy, when you're in shape and you walk in the room, you command a little bit of a different respect and you bring a different energy into where you go. It's also hard. So as you were saying earlier with the kids, I have to work out at 5 a.m. every day because that's the only thing that doesn't take away from my family time, doesn't take away from the business. And it also helps center me and kind of get me ready for the day so I can bring the best version of me. So, it's figuring out what things kind of bring you energy into the day because, doing the working out, watching YouTube videos on things that you're good at that you can get better at. You're going to have to do some of these things like everybody who's in sales. Nobody loves to make the 50 phone calls a day, sending the emails, making the social media posts, but you have to build these disciplines, to Grace's point, where the things that you maybe don't love to do, you have to do it, right? I talk a lot on our shows and stuff that you can either choose your suffering or life's going to hand you suffering. So choose to suffer a little bit every day. That way, when you get that curveball from life, you can handle it. It doesn't just completely break you.
Oh, there you go. Well, guys, I want to thank you for coming on today. Everyone, give your info. I'm going to go around. Joe, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can email me at joe@tabsnj.com or my website's tabsnj.com as well.
How about you, Grace?
You can email me at ghopper@bestversionmedia or follow me at Collingswood Living, Facebook, Instagram.
And you, Justin?
You can check out the website, paydayes.com. As Steve alluded to, I have a podcast, Millennial Outliers. You can catch me Thursday mornings on Morning Coffee with RV and TV. On every social media platform, it's either Justin Deal or on Instagram, it's JDeal6972. A lot of my info is right next to me. So you can snag any of that.
All right, people, you can follow me. Just go to LinkedIn. It's Steve Cooper because my Facebook is only for my friends. Sorry, people. I don't want to sound bad, but you can email me at the Coop Tank at yahoo.com. Go to YouTube. Search the Coop Tank and subscribe and comment and watch all the episodes. And they were talking about coaches. Well, if you're a podcaster, right? I've done over 1,000 interviews with major celebrities. So if you have a podcast and you want to become a better interviewer, reach out to me. the Coop Tank at yahoo.com. And I want to thank Joe Gangemi. If you want to start a podcast, me and Joe will work with you to help to start a podcast, but you got to reach out to Joe Gangemi. He's the best in town. He produces this show because he's great. So check him out. Email him at hello@SuiteRecording, I'm losing it today. SUITE recording.com. I'm Steve Cooper. You have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next time.